Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. With me today, I have Richard Hinton from New York. He's the Director of People Strategies at Shawmut Design and Construction. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I'm really excited because Richard started actually as an intern at Gillette, followed by a couple of years in HR at a media and marketing company before he joined Shawmut almost 16 years ago, I think. For those who don't know, Shawmut is a 1.3 billion design and construction firm, which is 100% employee owned by over 1,000 employees, I think now. Correct. Richard has a unique ability to streamline training strategies and enhance work performance, employee morale, and really get the best out of this division that is HR. And he prides himself in his expertise for driving innovation and initiatives to restructure processes and really make sure the playbook works, right? So he sees that the investment in talent enablement and growth is critical to a company's both market advantage and overall growth. So let's start with a simple question for you, Richard. And we're on Tuesday, we're recording this on Tuesday, but it's a question that many of us have been asked, maybe many times.
Sure. It's
quite a simple one, but how's your week going so far, Richard?
Interesting. I feel in the wonderful world of human resources, it's always a surprise. So I have to say this week, it's going. It's going. I think with the times we're in right now, as an HR professional, you should always be ready for the unexpected. And so I'd have to say today, I've been dealing with a number of different unexpected events, but I'm moving. I'm here. So that's happy. Something to celebrate.
It's par for the course, isn't it? I think for anyone who's still breathing and alive is being able to deal with uncertainty, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I learned earlier that you're just celebrating your 9th anniversary in New York. So a move from Boston, where the firm was headquartered, into New York. Tell me about that. What was that like? Was that something that you were moving for the first time? Have you moved around a bit? What was that story? Tell us.
Yeah, well, I was raised in Massachusetts, and I spent the majority of my life in Massachusetts. I ironically had just bought a house. I bought a brand new car. I was really had my roots set in Massachusetts, and my family's there and everything like that. So living in New York City was never anything that I had ever dreamed upon or dreamed of or anything like that. So when the opportunity came to really kind of take my career to the next level and really have some autonomy and driving growth at New York, the New York office, I just jumped at the occasion. It was one of those moments where, I was asked and I immediately knew that I was going to be living in New York. It was so ironic. I remember getting on the plane and looking out the window, and I was like, I am moving to New York. I'm very much a process person, so I usually stew over things, but this was a decision that I knew I was going to do right away, and I haven't looked back since. So
what do you think the difference was, Richard, for you? If your normal way of dealing with something that was new is to go through a process, to think about it, what was different in this situation that made you just instinctively go, I can see myself there. That's it. I'm off. What was different?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think it was really just looking for a change. I needed to challenge myself in another way. I find that I am most motivated when there's a challenge in front of me and I have the autonomy to really kind of drive that change. And this just felt like, it wasn't just a change for my career. It was just a change for my life. I kind of was, at this place where everybody was settled around me. My family was good. My friends, I just needed that change. And this just felt like the perfect opportunity. And I also feel like if you can live in New York City, you can live anywhere. And I like to hold myself to some pretty high standards too. So that was a challenge. And New York did not treat me well in the beginning. I will say I learned the hard way. But 9 years later, I can say it was definitely probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life.
It sounds like a line from a song, if you can live in New York, you can live anywhere.
Oh,
It probably is.
absolutely.
It probably is.
It might be. It might be.
It might be. So in terms of the changes that you went through from having certainty, solidarity around family, just bought home, car,
Yeah.
those sorts of things, to come into a new city, a new environment, and also for the work, it was setting up a new office, right?
Right.
And expanding and growing that. What were some of the unexpected challenges that you could remember that were maybe really impactful in the way that you responded or thought over those 9 years? What
Yeah.
highlights do you have?
I think more so, I had a benefit because I did travel to New York back and forth a lot. So the office was already established here in the city, and it was really more around the growth. So I knew all the key stakeholders, I knew the employees. The biggest issue though was I really didn't know New York City at all. So I didn't know the geography of the city. I still am learning that 9 years later. But I'd say the biggest obstacle was really just understanding the culture of New York. New York is a city that never sleeps. It continues to go. There's always hustle and bustle. There's so many different types of people. Um, there's so many different events. There's always something going on. So I found myself with sensory overload, and it was just a lot to kind of take in. So that's why I say I feel like, I wanted to kind of boil the ocean all in once, with being here, and I wanted to experience everything and meet as many people as I can and travel around the city as much as I can and, hit all those spots. And I think that was incredibly overwhelming, and that almost, set me up for a little bit of failure in the beginning too. It's just, I think it's one of those things where I just kind of had to take my time and get to know things on a more, slow pace and be a little bit more palatable. But with the city going so fast, you kind of have to really train yourself to slow down and take a step back and actually look at the bigger picture and what makes the most sense for me, for Richard, or for you as that respective person. So I think that was a huge learning for me, just around change and just really understanding the cultural makeup of the city and how I was going to insert myself and be part of the city.
I guess that story would resonate for people in other contexts, like joining a new role, right?
Absolutely.
And the office has grown to, it's like 200 or so in the New York office. Of coming, what's the culture? Want to learn everything, sensory overload, all of these things we have at various points in our lives. It might be a, transition of city we live on. It's also the roles, the people we work with, and the companies that are going through. So are there things that from that experience or from those observations, you've set up playbooks or evolved the way in which you operate for onboarding or transitioning people from role to role relevant to that story?
Yeah, I think it's a great question too. I think a lot of what we try to do here at Shawmut is we're very hands-on and taking time with our managers. That's one thing that I have really, really tried to do, is spend as much face-to-face time, not only with management, but also with employees, just to ensure that I understand what are the gaps, what are the development needs that we may have to put into place. But really, how do we get from point A to point B? So be it onboarding, be it hiring, be it an employee relation situation, just making sure that folks understand that HR is a resource for them for any questions they have. And I like to also set myself up to be a person that if anybody has any questions, period, regarding the business, regarding Shawmut, regarding culture, regarding anything, just being that critical player. But in regards to onboarding, I think it's really just ensuring that folks have a good understanding of what our culture is, understanding about what the expectations are, their resources, all of that, and really just making sure that people know that, if they have issues with their managers or they have issues with anything, that they always have, a place in HR. And I know how HR, departments are known in other companies and everything like that. So a lot of what I had to do is really kind of continue to dismantle that thinking and truly be a partner, not only for the leadership team, but also for employees as well as managers as well.
I guess that life cycle that people go through of, as we explore new, as we develop, as we find our feet of who we are, how we show up,
Yeah.
and then stuff changes, right?
Absolutely.
We
Left
get
and
hit
right.
left. Yeah, we hit left and right from external factors as much as internal factors, whether it's a technological breakthrough, whether it's new client or markets that we're going into, or pandemic issues. There's always this shift. And I'm really curious, with an organization that's, significant size, significant impact, and employee owned,
Right.
what are some of the unique things that you think have been some strengths to help navigate a lot of those changes, a lot of the impact of pandemic, of shifts? What are some of the traits that have shown up that have helped you as a team deal with that and thrive in it?
Yeah, I think we were really actually set up for the pandemic in so many ways, and in a very indirect way. So at Shawmut, we have a flexible arrangement kind of a program here, and we had it well before the pandemic or anything like that. So when everybody was pretty much sent home during COVID and everything like that, we already had systems in place. We had kind of processes in place for folks to really be able to do their work remotely as needed. But in construction, you also have folks that are actually on the job site as well. So, it was always a complicated kind of a balance of how do you also make sure that everybody is safe, that people feel like they can be safe and they can get to their work safely, but also feel like they feel supported at the same time. I think having people be remote, they have that protection of being home, but then when you're on the job site, and it's definitely a challenge as well. So that was really I think it was a lot of challenges in regards to the pandemic, and there's also no playbook. And so setting up the office for when we were coming back into the office and making sure that people were safe. And we had different systems around checking if folks had symptoms. We had systems around visitors. We had, you name it, the office. That was probably one of the largest projects that I think all of us as HR business partners and our HR team, as well as office services, really had to kind of put into practice. And I really enjoyed, that, because it was something so new that you could kind of really roll up your sleeves and dig into things. And for me in particular, I support, New York, but also we have an office in Chicago. We had an office in Miami as well that also fall within my region. So understanding the differences in municipalities was a huge challenge. Not to mention that in Florida, it's almost like, the pandemic was viewed at, it's very different than it was up here in New York or even in Illinois as well. So those challenges were a lot to learn from. And then I also feel like everything that happened with the social unrest was a huge learning, for a lot of organizations. But I think for me in particular, it definitely kind of was a challenge to kind of really open up my eyes and kind of see myself as an African American man, working in the construction industry, but also just operating as an African American, as a Black man too. So I think that a lot of things from the pandemic really put into place a need for better DEI programs, ensuring that our offices are safe. But then on the other side of that too is, you can have safe offices and you have people that are working in hybrid, situations and stuff like that, but also making sure that managers know how to manage people effectively. So, be it training, I will tell you, one-on-one conversations are probably my favorite way to actually communicate with people, because I feel like, number one, you get the nonverbal, and if you're viewing folks, it's great to have that, and we definitely try to do that if folks feel comfortable. But I feel like you really can kind of get to know how people are doing, ensure that they feel supported and ensure that they feel heard, but then also continue to build upon that relationship. And I think relationships also have evolved through the pandemic, and it's much more about the human element of people, and how are you doing, what's going on, in your life, and all that kind of stuff. That's the support that a lot of people need. And I feel like the past 3 years has really catapulted a need for change and how we manage people, but then also it's an opportunity for HR too, to continue to evolve. And the future of work is really, I think this is where I feel most excited about the work that we're doing in HR, is just thinking about the future, thinking about what got us here and how that's probably not going to get us to where we need to go, but then being able to kind of almost create that playbook a little bit more and kind of drive some of those changes and really kind of lean into some of the differences that generations have and cultures have, and how this really plays into the growth of Shawmut too as an employee-owned company. So
it sure is an exciting time at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of all of these opportunities to reevaluate, to reflect, to think about, as you mentioned, what has worked before, and will it work again in this new context? So we're
Right.
very much contextually aware more, or at least trying to be, aren't we, as
Yes.
organizations, where we want to know, hey, Richard, how are you doing? What is your day going on? Not just as that's a small talk. No, it will
Right.
actually adapt my next piece, what I do, what I put in, how I think, maybe even a system and a process.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity to change them has been gifted us.
Right.
Whereas before, changing process or systems was quite tough. We
Right.
had a lot of unlearning to do. We had a lot of business cases to put forward. We had a lot of shift and inertia to try and break through. Whereas now, I feel the appetite for change has increased. But with that is so then the expectations of
Right.
change.
Yes.
I'm interested in terms of your sense of almost of change fatigue. We're hit from internal, external, diversity, political landscape. Over your tenure of nearly 16 years, lots of different political landscapes, and then COVID, having knowledge workers and construction workers, all of these things. Surely there's elements where there's just exhaustion.
Yeah.
And how do you
Burnout.
deal with, oh, I'm excited, great, got a new playbook to write, to, oh, got another thing to figure out? How do you deal with
Yeah.
that paradox?
It's a both and, absolutely. It's a little term I used to use, a both and, where yes, I absolutely am. They're absolutely, it's daunting to think about all the change that's in place. And honestly, I'm not a person that adapts, that takes to change very well. But I think in the sense of just survival as an organization and survival, throughout this pandemic, I think you just kind of have to kind of grin and bear it too. But burnout is so real. And my thinking around burnout too is really just being able to be a sounding board for folks. A lot of times I found that a lot of times people, there's a lot of change and there's a lot of burnout, and just being a person that they can listen to, that they can talk to, have a strong relationship with. I find a lot of times that can help even just alleviate it a little bit more than that person might need, but also kind of might be able to help them kind of identify what might be some ways that you can actually take a step back and, practice a little bit more self-care. I love to model things like this too, because I feel like that's such a great way of, not only putting your money where your mouth is, but then also just showing folks what it looks like as well. So, whatever I need to do, if I have to go to a soul cycle class at, right before work, and it makes me a little bit late for a meeting or what have you, or if I need to take some time off to work remotely just because I'm, involved in a conference or anything like that, being able to model that and show that on my calendar, talk to people about it, really check in on people, how they're doing with their weekends. How are things going with, a lot of people got dogs over this past few years or so, but being able to share kind of different puppy photos and stuff like that, bringing a little bit more light and a little bit more energy, and just building upon those relationships. I feel like a lot of times that can really, really help folks get through burnout. And it can be, maybe it's a quick fix for the moment. Sometimes those quick fixes really can kind of add up and continue to compile and really make folks feel valued at their organization, but also just continue to build upon that support system that a lot of us are looking for and need that nourishment to continue to work and to thrive.
I think you're right. It's that connection that
Right.
helps us through, a connection by understanding what someone's going through, good and
Exactly.
bad. Hey, you've
Exactly.
got a
Yeah.
puppy. Cool. Let's know that.
Right.
Oh, this has happened. A family member, this,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, is
Right.
knowing the human side. And at the same time, there's jobs to be done, work
Right.
to be done, all of
Right.
those. And that balance, sometimes, the pendulum sways around, and
Right.
acknowledging that is important. I'm interested. So when we cast the vision out a little bit and trying to look at what are all of these, you know, talent development areas, how are we getting employee mobility in, how are we reskilling, what are the things that we need to be ready for in
Mhm.
order that we're not just surviving or coping, but we're in
Right.
a thriving state, that we have great well-being, we've got, all the things that we as a employee-owned business want to create, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
What does that look like in reality of some of the things that you're focusing on, some of the things that you're really excited of bringing in that's going to nurture that next, development phase for people? Tell us a little bit more about that, Richard.
Yeah. So I found that development is probably my favorite area of human resources, and it's developing people. So not only just my direct reports, but other folks within the team, other folks like, however I can cast my net of developing people, that is something that brings a lot of excitement to me and keeps me motivated. But I think some of the things that I'm really most excited about are things around just, DEI, leaning into the work around that stuff. I've always been incredibly passionate around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. That's actually what got me to Shawmut, is just, the work that they were doing, 15, 16 years ago around diversity with a construction company in Boston, Massachusetts. I never imagined ever kind of being, feeling like I would, work there, but let alone 16 years later too. So continuing to go along that journey too. And I think things have changed a lot, and I think we have to kind of reshift things within this industry. But that's been really exciting. But then also just, things around sustainability, things around philanthropy, understanding the new generations, the millennials, and also the Gen Zs, and what motivates them, and how do they think about things. But then also, this is the first time we've had 5 generations in the workforce at the same time too. So looking at those elements of how we all work and play nice in the sandbox, if you will, that's really exciting to me too. I think the reason why I'm in HR, if you can't tell already, is I have a good passion around social anthropology and cultural things around that nature too. So that's the stuff that really excites me too, I'd say, for the most part. But we're moving and consolidating our office, but even thinking about hybrid work environments and how to make that work, and how to lean into what managers need and what employees need, and what that's going to look like in the future. That stuff is incredibly exciting to me.
And the realities of doing these things that work, you mentioned, I love one-to-one sessions, right? You get all the non-verbals, all of these bits, and you'll know that they're effective, they work, they're hyper-personalized. You can develop out the plans that are relative to them.
Right.
How does that work at scale? Is it that everyone's having one-to-ones, they've all got personalized development plans, or is there ways that you're putting people together that are, okay, this is a pocket in area that we know respond to this type of communication or this type of flow, that they want to play to win, they're after exploring and doing new things, and this area, actually, they're all about productivity, efficiency, utilizing what we've got and making it better, and so we build people around it. How do you deal with the sort of challenge of hyper-personalization and scaling of development plans?
Yeah, that's a really great question too. We did an employee survey last year, and I think we had a lot of data that came out of that we were able to really kind of build some action plans around it. And I think what's been really helpful is to be able to continue to talk to different pockets of people about this, being able to also have those one-on-ones as well, to continue to build that case and really have a solid understanding of what is it that folks need. And really have an understanding of what job families may need specific to them. And one thing that we found specifically from our employee data is it was fairly consistent across the board. There may be little nuances here and there for folks in different demographics or in different job families or what have you, but at the end of the day, a lot of folks were really looking for a lot of career development. They really wanted to see how am I going to continue to grow within the organization. But I also feel like there's also another part to that too, is like, getting to do more work and bigger work and larger work and growing all that people want to know what's in it for them too. So what am I going to get out of this as well? And how is this feeding into the greater good? So having a clear understanding of that, and just across the board, I think we really looked at it as an organization. These are the things that folks are telling us, and how do we really tailor that to those people as well? So it's been more at a company-wide level. I wouldn't say that we've done anything specific to a job family or a demographic or anything like that. It has kind of been something that we kind of cast across the organization through training and all that kind of stuff too.
And I guess like many firms, this balance between I want to develop, I want to grow,
Mhm.
and which direction do I grow in? Do
Yeah.
I master that skill that maybe the half-life of that skill may be much less than it used to be? Do I become a master craftsman? Do I get really good as a bricklayer, for example, only to be actually there's machines that can do that and technology that can do all the various elements that might be in small pockets
Mhm.
around that can go from deceptive to disruptive quite quickly. And I think construction is certainly an industry where these exponential technologies of using augmented reality, using different substrates and materials, how we build our environment around us is going through radical transformation at the moment. And
Absolutely.
how on the ground are folks dealing with that? Are they putting up an immune system to hold on to something they've spent their life building, or are they going, yes, come on in, Mr. Technology?
Yes.
We're diverse. I'm
Yeah.
diverse not just by color or
Sure.
group or age, but also by technology, or by I'll bring in a robot to help work with me, or I'll bring in this type of technology.
Yeah.
How does that between science fiction and reality, what's going on in that area for you, Richard?
Yeah, that's really funny too. I think that is something that specifically depends on the person that you ask, I will say. I also think that the generations also play a huge factor in a lot of this stuff too. But I will say that what we found is a lot of our millennials and Gen Z folks, they love anything to do with the technology and the technological advances, and how can technology also help us grow and help us thrive as we look to the future. I think a lot of folks that might be on the job site that have been the seasoned kind of construction superintendents that are project managers, whatever you want to say, it kind of goes across the whole, many of the job families, but a lot of those folks have a harder time really kind of I don't know if it's trusting technology, or just even understanding how it can also be beneficial. And I also personally believe that it's somewhere in the middle too. I think that right now we're in a place where you can blend the two, and I think it's only going to help evolve a lot of the different technological advances coming up too. But I do feel like there is a lot of resistance around innovation these days too, and I think that it's incredibly important to lean into that and to continue to push there, because that's the way of the future. And in order to thrive and be successful in the future, we have to get there too. So it's really just kind of understanding what might be some levers that you can play for folks to learn from one another too. And I think mentoring is really great. We do a lot of things around mentorship, and even just setting up someone that's a really seasoned builder that will take out those drawings and that will sit down with you with a highlighter or a pen and dig into the drawings, and this is what you need to think of. But then also having them with maybe a greener assistant project manager or field engineer or something like that, that also might bring another way of doing it, or maybe something technologically advanced that we haven't thought about before too. So being able to kind of blend the two a little bit more and have folks learn from one another, I feel like that is a nice, if you will, like utopia, if you will.
Yeah. I think it's interesting if we look at other industries, between where is knowledge held, how's it deployed, and what is the access to that. If we had computers and mainframes, and we had dumb terminals, and where is the information, where's the processing power? And we can think of this a lot for humans, that I have a set of knowledge. I went to college, I went to university, I've learned this skill, this, electrician or whatever it may be, and I can apply it, I can problem solve, I can follow drawings, I can apply it. And then in the real world, when it's not quite right with the drawing, I can adapt it and make it work, right?
Right.
And then on the other case, you have somebody who says, well, I've got a pair of hands and I've got YouTube, and I can, figure out as I go along and learn in line with life, and even then I can flow in Oculus or augmented pieces that can look at it and say, that's where the issue is. And I don't need the same level of expertise and knowledge that perhaps was revered in the past, to now technology being a collaborative component to us to diagnose, to even do the creative stuff, because we've
Yeah.
talked about, humans, well, the realm of creativity, to now the art, the music, the construction design, the generative design, when we just say, okay, we've got these parameters. I want this kind of temperature management. I want this kind of force tenure. I want this kind of, output. Design it for me. And it creates something from a new material, a new poly that is, been designed, and it looks totally different to how we might traditionally know it's triangles and it's this, and we do it in geometry. And I think this evolution of where we would have done it through collaboration and conversation, to now that conversation could even be with an inanimate. Hey, Alexa, design me the XYZ, and it starts to do it in the same way. I might have the chat with you, Richard, and say, hey, I want to do this, and you get your highlighter out and a pencil.
Right.
I'm fascinated by these phases of shift of what tasks made up jobs and what jobs made up careers, to now what kind of skills make up sustainability of something that we ultimately enjoy doing, of creating an environment that brings smiles to people, helps them live the life they want to live. And so where you mentioned there's obviously some friction in elements of that change.
Absolutely.
What do you think are some of the dangers that might exist if people don't overcome those friction points of change or shift? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I mean, I feel like a lot of times clients are asking for this as well too. So in order to, win business or to even be a player in the market, you have to adapt as well. So I'd say from a business case around that is, getting certain work and being able to bid for a specific project. So I think a lot of times that is a lever that we use around, pushing for more innovation and thinking about things differently and utilizing things like virtual modeling. That's been a big thing that I think has come up in construction, over the past few years or so, being able to design something virtually and look at it and from a 3D dimension, it's very, very cool. And you can actually, put on the goggles and walk through, and I've done it a few times too. And it's very, very cool. So I think everybody would attest that it is very cool to kind of, look through that stuff too. But I feel like a lot of times the nature of the industry, it's pushing us in that direction. And I think being able to listen to kind of why it's important and understanding the value behind it, and also more importantly, the client requesting it, and also how it leads to efficiency and getting things done quicker and faster, but also just understanding that what might be some of the pitfalls that we're falling into by utilizing this technology, and having an understanding of that before, I think that's also helpful as well. But I find a lot of times just pushing on efficiency and streamlining processes, that is incredibly important. And a lot of times that works for folks. That's a valid argument for them. But then also looking at it as an ESOP company, an employee-owned company, we all want to be successful. We all want to, Shawmut, to land on top, to win that huge project. And if a client is looking for that, then that's kind of how we're going to have to execute too. So.
And I guess it comes down to each organization's heart. What are their values? Because just because something can be done, because it's efficient, might not be the choice you want.
It's true.
It
that is
could
absolutely
be
true.
the joy of the tactile, of the slow, of the craft. And I guess it's the beauty of that juxtaposition of those things, to know what's the values and the connection that ultimately growing and winning everything might not be the right answer, and it's winning the stuff that brings joy. It's winning the things that give this element of development for people to jump on a plane and go to somewhere new. And at the same time, leverage something that they feel is part of them. And I guess is life, isn't it? What do we leverage that is
what's in it for me? It's that what's in it for me too. How am I getting something from this? And how is this, fostering growth for the collective whole, for everybody? You know what I mean? I think that also is huge.
If you could make a prediction, Richard, about the firm, about the next, say, 3 to 5 years, of the key attributes that are going to be the drivers of that success. You know, you've mentioned about your view of investing in talent, in development, in these sorts of things. Are there specific areas that you think leadership really need to focus on in that broad term of development and invest in talent? In what way? You know, what are the stepping stones that you're making for the next 3 to 5 years for the organization and for the leaders to be on the top of that pile, on the list, winning the types of things you want to win? What might those things look like, Richard?
I think investment a little bit more into diversity, equity, and inclusion is very big, because essentially I think a lot of people get a little bit worried about the term itself, the terms, and it's really how you lead and how you manage people really at the end of the day. So that I think that's a big project, or, you know, something that needs to be driven from the top down as well. I also think that just understanding a little bit more about engagement and what motivates people is big, and really just understanding that exactly what I said before, what got us here is probably not going to get us to the next level, and being open to change. You know, in construction, it's just like you said, you know a way of building, and you continue to want to build that way, and you're like, okay, you know, this has worked for me before, and I'm going to keep it going, and why change it if it's not broken, kind of thing. But it kind of is broken though too. So I think that there is a need to always continue to evolve and to develop. And I think having an understanding on how management and leadership has changed is something that's very, very big for leaders to really kind of understand, but then also how they need to change as leaders and how they need to evolve is incredibly important as well. But I think even the simple task of listening to folks is critical. Just listening to your people, listening to your managers, listening to what's going on outside, listening to what's going on in your own family too. I think you can learn so much from that to bring back to the business too. Because I think we're all, times have changed, and it's no more work-life balance. It's life-work balance. Life comes before work. So having a solid understanding that employees really want to have the flexibility, want to have the autonomy to work when, where, however they want to work to, and being able to, have processes in place and have systems in place to be able to continue to grow the business like that, but also in that way where that people are going to put their life before the work. I think that that's really, really critical for leaders to continue to work on, continue to grow and flex those muscles around management and leadership in that area. And also I'd say one other thing I forgot to say too, that I think is huge and kind of probably captures a lot of this is the levels of empathy and compassion that people have as managers and as leaders. It's been really, really interesting to kind of watch it play out and see how people react to it. And what the difference is between empathy, sympathy, and compassion. I'm continuing to learn about it too, but I feel like the more that we as people, not just as leaders and managers, but as people practice around compassion, I feel like that is something that's so critical after the past few years we have, or even where we're at right now. I still don't feel like we're in the clear just yet. There's every time I turn around, there's something else going on. And, but I think the more that we understand that, that's huge. That's huge.
It's interesting. My wife has her intent ring. These intent rings are essentially a one word of something that you want more of in your life, or that you celebrate of, or something like that. We're so driven by the time. We used to have, watches before mobile phones at the time, and you'd always be, oh, what time is it? Where am I? Where do I need to be? But we don't think about, with that time, what am I doing? Who am I? And what am I contributing? And her word is compassion.
I love
it's
it.
her superpower. So it just made me smile of these thoughts of what is life, and life and work, and equally life and work. And we're redefining that contract.
We are.
Of elements of play, elements of learning that we thought were in these pockets that were either age pockets or location pockets or timing pockets. that we go to be educated and learn at this point in our lives and career at these locations, and then we go and leverage that investment for our careers with an odd little top up here and there for a bit of professional development, to now, wow, we can have portfolio careers, we can have different careers as we go through, depending on what excites us, what the environment's going on. And whilst that can be unsettling and exciting at the same time, that's why we need compassion, right? Because humans are complex, and we need to understand those different worlds that exist in our minds and our lives, you know, of those. So as we come to a final piece in the conversation, one of the areas that we've recognized in and around adaptability and how people deal with change, you've touched on so many bits of this, you know, from an ability to unlearn, to their resilience, to their mindset, to their, you know, psychological safety and team support, that all manifests in various outcomes, whether that's a diversity and inclusion outcome, an innovation outcome, a belonging, retention, all of those areas is one of these things around both hope and the science of hope, to be able to have a vision and have a pathway and the agency to achieve that vision. So the pathway will be the strategy, and the agency is the skills to achieve it. And without any of those three things, you know, the goal, vision, or the agency, the skills to do it, or the pathway, you know, the strategy, we are hopeless. And we feel a sense of hopelessness, a sense of unconnected. And if any of those things move, the skill moves, the strategy moves, the vision moves, we can get unsettled. So we have to practice this kind of mental flexibility and curiosity to uncover. So my question for you, Richard, is around curiosity. And it's something that traditionally, and the research says, we peak at age 5, Richard. We peak curiosity at age 5. One of my first interviews was with a lady called Dr. Diane Hamilton, who researched curiosity, developed the curiosity code and index and various things. And I was fascinated by this, to think, how can we maintain this playful curiosity throughout our lives? So when was the last time you did something for the first time, and what was it?
Oh my goodness. This is a tough one. You know what? This is a good one. Okay, so I think for me, it's practicing self-care is something that I really, really struggle with. I think, you know, growing up, I've always taken care of my mother or my sister or my friends, and I just kind of really developed that kind of a, you know, that personality and became that person. And I think a lot of times I have a hard time of saying no, or saying like, no, I really want to just veg out on my couch and watch Netflix all day, like, or I need a break or anything like that. That has been something that I have really, really tried to practice. And I will say this past weekend, I had a friend that wanted to go out and wanted to, you know, have like a whole brunch thing and everything like that. And I was like, I am not in the mood, nor do I want to just like ruin my whole weekend by just, you know, I need to take some time for myself, and that's okay. I feel like that is probably the last time that I really exercised some curiosity and playing out how everything would kind of, you know, play out between that situation between my friend and myself, and just being really honest with them and just letting them know, like, I have had a week. I've had a life period. So I think I would love a weekend just to kind of just work out and just have some time for myself. And that, you know, the way that they reacted to it is they were like, you know what, you're right, actually. Maybe let's rain check that. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. What are you doing? You know, and I told them, I was like, oh, I'm going to Soul Cycle. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And they were like, you know what, maybe I'll join you too. So we were able to kind of, you know, find some common ground in the middle. And I wasn't trying to influence them by any means. I was honestly just really trying to just be incredibly honest. And it was the outcome was better than I had expected too. So not only was I, you know, able to do what I needed to take care of myself, but I was also modeling and showing my friend, you know, that, maybe it might be something that you want to do as well, or, we can do it together too. And that still can be a form of self-care as well. So, playing with that stuff that's been interesting. And I feel like it's so critical.
I love that. And it is life's journey, isn't it? Isn't
It
it? This
is.
balance between what are we programmed to think and do and behave? What
Yeah.
are our biases to, selfish, putting one first is a
Yes.
bad thing, in certain
Exactly.
upbringings. And then actually to be able to serve, there's a reason why they say put on the oxygen mask on yourself before others.
Right.
If
Right.
if we are a server and we look after others, we need health, we need
Right.
vitality to do that, and we often forget it. So I think that's a really lovely message to end on, is that practicing the first time curiosity of putting self first
Absolutely.
in order to be healthy, to serve self and serve others. So thank you for that. I'm going to take that away as well, Richard.
Excellent.
A really valuable piece. If people want to reach out to you, get in touch, other HR leaders, about what you're up to, what you're doing, how do they best get in touch with you, Richard?
Sure. I would say I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I love different sayings on leadership and management and DEI, and you name it or what have you. So I'm always posting things, but I would say just look me up, Richard Hinton, on LinkedIn, and I will most definitely connect with you. I love to talk about this. I like to call myself a bit of an HR dork, if you will, because this is the stuff that motivates me and allows me to thrive. And even though it's uncertain and it's a lot of complexity behind it too, it's something that I enjoy working on too. And I'm really looking forward to the future and the future of work. So that's a pretty exciting thought for me.
I love it. Thank you. Richard is in his happy place when he is talking, learning, and thinking about people, their work, and how we contribute. Something we've got in common, Richard. I really enjoyed our session today.
Thank you so much, Ross.
Deep gratitude. Thank you.
Same. Thank you.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalised report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams and organisations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favourite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.